Hello students, welcome to the discussion of valuation on options. So today we'll discuss about the theory of Black-Scholes model, that is one of the type of valuation, and about how to implement this Black-Scholes model for pricing of the options. Right? So as we know that in valuation of options, we come across different models. One is a Black-Scholes model, other is a put call parity, and the third is a binomial model. So basically we come across these three types of models for valuation, right? So today we'll be discussing about the Black-Scholes model. So before we get into, there is also very high chance of coming into the examination about the assumptions of Black-Scholes model. So it is also very important to understand from the point of theory as well as from the point of examination about this Black-Scholes model. Okay, let's go through first and then we can proceed it. So what's first assumption of the Black-Scholes model is option is that been valued in the European option, right? So this Black-Scholes model can be applied only for those options where the options is of type of European. As we know that there are two types of options, that is American and European. It is applicable only to the European type of options. Fine. So there is no dividend on the stock during the life of the options. So as we understand that there is no returns that comes into the realize that we are going to realize the returns if we're going to take the stock, right? So that is one thing that we need to understand, that there is no returns that we are going to realize in the form of dividends for the underlying asset. There is no transaction cost and there is no tax for the trading or for the profit. Volatility, that is the deviation what we find in the stock price, right? So there is no much or uncertain volatility. The volatility is known for the time frame for the contract, right? And it is constant till the date of the expiry. Risk-free rate is also known and the constant, that is treasury bill rates are constant for the rest of the time period. Then short selling of the stock is permitted, right? So even for this underlying asset what we take here into consideration, for those short selling is permitted. Call option can be exercised only on the expiration date, right? So these can be exercised only on the expiration date. Then stock price follow a rule of log normal distribution. This is another biggest assumption that we need to take into consideration, that the prices of the stocks move in a log normal distribution table. Fine. So these are in general assumptions to apply the formula. So what are the variables that we come across? So here we come across 5 variables, right? In total it is a 6 variable. When we discuss about the option grids, we'll come to know more about these variables. In simple, let's try to understand, if you want to apply the Black-Scholes model, these are the 5 variables that is been required to calculate the Black-Scholes model. One is the stock prices should be known, that we call as a spot price. Then we need to know the exercise price, that is exercise price is also called as a strike price, for which we are entering into the option contract. Fine. Time to expiry, that is what is the time to expiry of the contract. It is 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. Risk-free rate, that is a treasury bill risk-free rate should be known. Then the volatility of the stock or the underlying asset should also be known. We need to know the volatility. So these are the 5 variables are the inputs to calculate the option price. Once again, I am trying to say you that an option price is nothing but an option premium. So in the valuation of option, we are calculating the option premium that we need to pay to acquire the rights. Fine. Before we apply, let's have little input about how to proceed with the Black-Scholes model, right? So one thing first we need to very clearly understand in the question, right, what is that we need to calculate, whether we need to calculate call option, whether we need to calculate put option, or we need to calculate both call as well as we need to calculate the put. This is the first clarity that we require. So once this clarity is clear, then we need to understand thoroughly what the data is being given, whether the data is being given for the underlying asset which has no income, right? Whether the data of underlying asset has no income, then what formula that I need to apply for a call well as for a put is equals to K. K is the strike price or exercise price multiplied by exponential to the power of minus RT, that is time to expiry, into n of minus d2 minus s naught n of minus d1. So here we need to calculate n d1 and n d2, n of minus d1 and n of minus d2 to substitute into the formula. The second case was if the underlying asset has a dividend in the form of cash, then what is the formula? The formula is C is equal to S naught star. So S naught star is nothing but, so when the dividend is when the underlying asset is paying a cash dividend, then we need to take the present value of the cash dividend, and that should be subtracted from S naught. So S naught star is equals to S naught minus I. I is the dividend which is been given, multiplied by exponential to the power of minus R into T. Here the T refers to the number of days left for the dividend payment. Fine. So once we calculate the present value of the dividend first, then subtract from the S naught, then we will get S naught star, right? S naught star multiplied by ND1 minus K into e to the power of minus RT ND2, right? The same thing for the put option. So what it makes the difference is S naught star. It's only wherever we come across in the formula of standard formula S naught, we have to make it as S naught star when the underlying asset is paying a dividend in the form of cash. Fine. So once this has been done, the third case was when the underlying asset is paying a dividend which is in the form of yield, right? When the underlying asset is paying a dividend which is in the form of yield, that is in the dividend yield, the formula goes like this. The call option C is equals to S naught into exponential to the power of minus delta into T. So delta stands for dividend yield. How much is the dividend yield the underlying asset is paying into T, multiplied by ND1 minus exponential into e to the power of minus RT into ND2. Fine. So similarly for the put option. So in all the three cases, case 1, which is underlying asset has no income. Simple formula, C is equals to S naught stock price multiplied by ND1 is a table value that we need to calculate, minus K is the strike price into e to the power of minus R into T into ND2, right? So for this, S naught is known, X strike price is known, R is known, and T is known. We need to calculate ND1 and ND2. Fine. In the case of cash dividend, we need to first simplify S naught star. The rest again ND1 and ND2 to be calculated. The rest strike price R and T is known. In the question, case 3, dividend for the yield. Dividend yield would be given in the question to you. S naught would be given as a stock price. Exercise price is given, risk-free rate is given, R, time is given of expiry T, right? Again, you need to calculate ND1 and ND2 there. Okay, to calculate ND1 and ND2 in all the three cases, first we'll try to look at how to calculate this ND1, that is normal distribution value ND1 and ND2. So to need to calculate ND1 and ND2, right, we need to calculate first what is D1 and D2, because ND1 and ND2 is normal distribution table value. To know that table value, first we need to know what is D1 and D2, right? To calculate D1 here, the formula, that is for the case 1 where there is no income, D1 is equals to ln, that is logarithmic value, open the bracket, S naught starts spot price divided by exercise price, close the bracket. Simplify this. First take spot price plus strike price. What is the value you get? Take the ln value. Either you can take calculator value or you can take the table value. Fine. Plus once you simplify this, then open the bracket, R stands for risk-free rate of return plus standard deviation square, right? Standard deviation square, or you can call it as a variance, divided by 2. Close the bracket, multiplied by T, right? T is the time to expiry, which should be multiplied for the product of R plus standard deviation square divided by 2. Okay, not for the all the numerator value. Whole divided by standard deviation into root T. T stands for time to expiry. So when you want to calculate time to expiry, suppose it is a 3-month contract, 3 divided by 12. If it is 6 months contract, it is 6 divided by 12. It is 1 year, 12 divided by 12. Based on which we need to calculate the T value. Fine. So next for the dividend, where underlying asset where the dividend is given in the form of cash, right? So everything is remain the same. Only we take wherever it is S naught, we will take it as a S naught star. Right, D1 is equals to ln S naught star. S naught star is nothing but S naught minus present value of the dividend, that is S naught star, divided by the strike price plus open the bracket R plus standard deviation square divided by 2 multiplied by T, whole divided by standard deviation root T. This is about D1. So once you calculate D1, so D2 is very easy. D2 is nothing but whatever the value you got D1 minus the denominator value, standard deviation multiplied by root T is your D2, right? So that we got D1 and D2. Then we move on to the dividend yield. So dividend yield, when the third case, when underlying asset is paying a dividend yield. Fine. So what is the formula? The formula here is D1 is equals to logarithmic value ln open the bracket s0 divided by k. S0 is the spot price divided by excess price plus open the bracket r, that is risk free rate of return, minus dividend yield. Okay, close the bracket. Risk free rate of return minus dividend yield, close the bracket, plus open the bracket standard deviation square divided by 2, close the bracket, right? Then whole multiplied by the t. So the time to expiry should be multiplied with r minus delta, okay, which should be simplified, plus standard deviation square by 2, right? It should be multiplied by t, whole divided by standard deviation into root t. Okay, this is the three cases to calculate d1 d2, right, for case 1, case 2 and case 3. So once we calculate the d1 d2 for the case 1, case 2 or case 3 based on the nature of the given question, then we'll proceed to calculate nd1. Okay, so this is again the formula for you, just for understanding. So calculating nd1, so we have to write it as nd1 is equals to 0.5, which is a standard value. Always we should take it as standard value first as 0.5, because if you look at the right hand side, the normal distribution value, first 0.5 is a standard value plus what is a deviation, right, which is rounded with the red color in the right side table. 0.5 the standard value plus the table value of the d1, right? What value we got d1, that we need to take from the table. Now how do you look at the table? I was posted you the table in the group, right? Just look at the normal distribution table there. Just I have given the example. If we got the calculated value of d1 as 0.37, so 0.3 first decimal after first digit 0.3 should be taken in vertical. 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, when we need to take it in the vertical and identify where does exactly the 0.3 comes. Then we need to take it as 0.07, right? 0.3 plus 0.07 comes out to be 0.37 as an example that I have been taken. The second is 0.07. I will read it as a 0.07. So this 0.07 to be looked from the horizontal in a table, right? So 0.07 exactly. Now look at the table value, 0.3 and 0.07. What is the table value you get? The table value what you get here is 0.1443. So this table value 0.1443 plus 0.5 would be the nd1 value, right? So similarly, we need to calculate for nd2. Okay, by this, once we get nd1 and nd2, substitute this value